So this particular little lecture is over Chapter 15 in your textbook. Chapter 15 deals with proteins and amino acids. So protein is one of those three macronutrients. So it's an energy yielding nutrient. So it is definitely essential. So this particular chapter just really dives a little deeper into that particular nutrient. So first of all, just a few things to understand is that protein is an essential structural component of all living matter, right? And it is very, very important, and that's why it is considered one of our macronutrients. But also understand that nearly everyone gets enough protein in our diet. Protein, people want to put protein up on a pedestal and, consume lots of, animal products that are high sources of protein. And that brings our protein intake to almost twice of what it's actually recommended. So, 98 grams a day is the average intake, which is twice of what is actually needed for the recommended daily allowance. Also, protein is a chemical substance found in our food, and it's made up of chains of amino acids. And also, it's involved in almost every biological process that occurs in our cells. So it has some important structural and functional purposes in our body. But also we need to understand that high protein diets are also usually high in fat and low in fiber. When people eliminate carbohydrates from their diet, a lot of times they're eliminating fiber, which is key in our health. And then on top of that, people are choosing the wrong types of rich sources of protein. So animal products like red meat, for example, that is very, very high in fat. So again, like I said, people tend to put protein on a pedestal, but as far as choosing the right sources, we are not. A lot of folks are choosing animal sources of protein like red meat, which is very, very high in fat, and then also animal sources such as dairy products. Dairy products are very high in protein, but many people are choosing the full fat dairy products, which are not good. So if we're going to choose dairy, we want to choose the low fat or the fat-free versions of those products. So here you can see even lean meats, these are about 3-ounce portions of lean cuts of meat, can be very high in fat. So for example, looking at the burger, just a 3-ounce hamburger, and it's even considered 90% lean when you buy it at the store, 45% of the total calories are still fat. Okay, so just having an understanding that even though animal sources of protein, like each one of these contain probably 20 to 21 grams of high quality protein, but they can be very high in fat as well, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So if we want to choose animal products and animal sources of protein, obviously like a baked chicken breast or a grilled chicken breast, removing the skin is the best way because it is a very low source of fat as well. Here again, you can see the structural and the functional purposes of protein. So in addition to, structurally, it's basically comprises almost every structure in our body, but functionally, it also assists with many important things as well. Also, protein contains those amino acids. So amino acids are the building blocks of protein. They all contain nitrogen. There are 20 different amino acids altogether, and those 20 amino acids can be broken down into 2 categories. You have your essential and your non-essential amino acids. The essential amino acids are the ones that the body cannot produce. So we need to consume them through food. So there are 9 essential amino acids, and then the other 11 are considered non-essential, meaning our body can produce them in insufficient amounts. So we don't necessarily have to have a dietary source of those particular amino acids. So here you can see the 9 essential that we have to get through dietary foods, and then also your 11 non-essential. Now, as far as proteins go, there's quality. So a high quality protein is a protein that contains all of your 9 essential amino acids and in the amounts needed for protein synthesis. So making sure that we're consuming those high quality protein sources are key in a dietary pattern. So where do we get high quality protein? Well, a lot of our animal sources, like pictured here, are considered high quality proteins because they contain all 9 of those essential amino acids. But we can also consume complete and incomplete proteins. So again, complete proteins contain all of the essential amino acids, all 9, and incomplete proteins, on the other hand, are deficient in one or more of those essential amino acids. So those plant foods are considered incomplete. Okay, so they might be missing one or more of those essential amino acids. But if we combine them, if we combine our plant foods together in a manner where they can complement each other, that will form a complete protein. So for example, here you've got beans and rice. Individually, these are incomplete proteins. Individually, they're missing one or more of those essential amino acids. But when we combine them together, they complement each other and they form a complete protein. High intakes of individual amino acid supplements can definitely disrupt normal protein function. So there's a lot of amino acid supplements that are sold over the counter. And just be cautious, because like we talked about with chapter 1, the supplement industry is not regulated. So anything sold over the counter is kind of like a buyer beware market type thing. So be cautious of anything that you're buying over the counter, because there's some adverse effects associated with certain amino acid supplements. Now, as far as muscle size and strength, it's definitely built from a proper diet and a resistance training program. So a lot of people think one of the protein functions is to build and repair muscle tissue. So ingesting extra protein is going to help to build size and mass. But the only way we're going to be able to do that is picking up heavy things and putting them down. So if we're resistance training, we're lifting heavier weights, following that protocol. Ingest 20 grams of high quality protein shortly after our resistance training workouts. That's going to help to rebuild and repair those muscle tissues as we go through our resistance training protein. And again, high quality protein from food is what's going to be most effective versus taking a supplement. So definitely resistance training is key. Combine that with the 20 grams of high quality protein within an hour post-exercise, and that's the way to go. So as far as where does protein come from in our diet, about 70% of the protein consumption from Americans comes from meat. Okay, a lot of people are choosing the meat option, but many folks today are starting to go vegetarian. So therefore, they're choosing dry beans and grains to make those protein needs. So here you can see, these are tables in your book, but you can see animal products and what percentage of the total calories comes from protein and how many grams of protein is in each one of these servings. So again, animal products, yes, they can be very high sources of protein, but you have to be cautious about the amount of fat that's in there too. Dried beans and nuts, those are also really rich sources of protein, and then certain grains as well. In addition to animal products and meat being a great source of protein, it also is a great source of iron. So you can see the iron content in certain animal products as well, and that is another essential mineral. And you can see the RDA for women aged 19 to 30 is 15 milligrams a day, and for men it's 10 milligrams a day. So how much protein is too much? Well, the recommendation is 10 to 35% of your total calories, okay, and that's a safe range to go. But anything over 45% of your total calories is considered too high. What's going to happen as a result of that, if we continue having a high amount of calories coming from protein each day, nausea is possible, weakness, diarrhea is quite possible. In addition to that, weak bones, because calcium leaches, or protein leaches calcium from our bones, so long-term effects of a high protein diet could be low bone mineral content, and therefore osteoporosis is a risk. Kidney stones tend to be developed more often in people who consume a lot of protein. And then obviously they're at a greater risk for chronic disease like cancer and heart disease, and obesity even as well.